No puedes comprar una propiedad en Miami este 2025 sin escuchar estos datos. Algunos expertos dicen que los precios pueden bajar, pero otros aseguran que no hay suficiente inventario. Hoy traemos unos datos que nadie más podrá ofrecerte de la mano de un experto para que analicemos juntos si realmente este es el mejor o el peor momento para comprar en Miami. Lo que vas a escuchar podría cambiar tu estrategia de inversión. Esto es Conversando con Stephanie Cabral de Fe, Familia Real Estate. Hoy tenemos un episodio que nos aclarará muchísimas cosas porque hemos sentado a la mesa al señor Craig Studnicky, CEO y cofundador de ISG World y Related ISG Realty y el creador del Miami Report para analizar el panorama para este año en el mercado inmobiliario en Miami. Y en esta ocasión voy a estar haciendo este podcast en inglés con Craig, pero aquí van a estar los subtítulos para que puedas entenderlo en español. Bienvenido, señor Craig.
Muchas gracias, Stephanie. Thank
Sí, you know a little bit Spanish.
Sí.
Got it?
Estoy viviendo en Miami para 30 años, entonces yo hablo poquito.
I like it. It's an honor to have you here in my podcast today because when it comes to real estate, you are the real estate authority when it comes to numbers, facts, trends in South Florida.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
And I know you know that, but I had to tell you that because, I mean, it's amazing how you are so passionate about numbers, about real estate, and you can tell that. I mean, you can feel it. And I know when I met you 10 years ago in Riesgo City Center.
Riesgo City Center.
And I remember when you did this small report presentation for a tiny group for 10 people.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are.
Yeah. And you've seen me do it in front of 2,000 people. And I kind of do it with the same, I guess, enthusiasm. Some people call it passion. I find real estate fascinating. And we happen to be in Florida, which I've been selling real estate now for 46 years. My twin sister is 68 years old. And therefore, I've been selling real estate for quite a long time. I've sold it in Washington, D.C. I've sold in New York City. I've sold in Philadelphia. I have sold in Las Vegas, Nevada. Most of my time, however, has been spent in Florida. And when I compare the attraction of Florida compared to those other locations I just mentioned, there's nothing that compares to Florida.
You got it. No, and I just want to tell my audience that you have represented more than 110 developments.
115, actually.
115?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's been a great journey.
Yes.
A lot of experience. So, yes, a lot.
Lots of U.S. presidents,
Yeah.
lots of interest rate changes, lots of stuff.
Lots of stuff. But I want to start with this because people think, oh my God, Stephanie, there's a lot of inventory or there's a lot of construction going on in Brickell, downtown, Miami Beach, Broward. What are your thoughts about, is there enough inventory or what's going on?
No, we have an inventory problem. Let me first start with demand, if I may.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Since we have a mayor in Miami, Mayor Francis Suarez.
And are you very close to him?
I respect and admire the guy so much. He's a mayor. He's a good mayor, but he's a better salesman than he is what people think of as mayors. He has sold over 200 Fortune 400 and Fortune 500 companies since 2020, since COVID, to relocate either their world headquarters or open satellite offices here in South Florida. It could be Miami, it could be Fort Lauderdale, it could be Palm Beach. But nevertheless, they're coming. And they're coming with a lot of Americans from all four corners of the United States. Miami was always referred to as the sixth borough of New York City, right? Because New York's got Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and Staten Island. But then there's Miami, there's six. It's not just New York anymore. And it's not just the Northeast corridor from Boston down to Washington, D.C. It's the entire United States, from California and all parts in between. And they're all coming. So it kind of started, we've always been a very popular state. We've always been growing by around 900 people a day in the last 10, 15 years. But the real benefit of in terms of population gains that we've seen from Mayor Suarez, we saw just last year in 2024, Florida grew by nearly 1,300 people every single day. We've been growing by around 950 to 1,000 for like the last 10 years, but last year was a big hit. And see, and Stephanie, my business used to be before COVID, at least 60-70% of my American sales were second homes, vacation homes. I mean, today is February 5th. How beautiful is the weather outside?
It's a sunny day in Miami.
If I wasn't here with Stephanie Cabral, I'd be playing golf. I'd be doing something outside. It's so nice here. And that's one of these major attractions of South Florida. Anyway, last year we saw a record for Florida. In the history of the state of Florida, we've never...
That's a good point. 1,300 people moving to Florida every day.
That's net. Let me explain this real quickly. It's people moving into Florida, and then this is the U.S. Census, and then they subtract people moving out of the state, and then they add births, and then they subtract deaths. That's how they determine population gains. Florida was at 1,300. We're number 2 behind Texas. It's Texas and Florida and Texas. The 3, 4, and 5 don't even matter. There's no state income tax in Texas. There's no state income tax in Florida. What makes Florida so attractive is we're a peninsula surrounded by beautiful ocean water. The Gulf of Mexico on the west coast, the Atlantic Ocean here on the east. The weather is beyond spectacular. Texas has not nearly the kind of weather we have. It gets super, super cold and rainy and snowy and in the wintertime. And it gets really, really super, super hot in the summer. I know. I've mentioned my twin sister to you. She lives in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
I visit her a lot. And in the summer, you could fry an egg on the street. It's so hot. In the winter, it's so ridiculously cold. It's not Florida.
It's not Florida, right?
It's paradise from a weather standpoint. So Francis Suarez sold that. He sold to these Fortune 400 and Fortune 500 companies. He sold the idea that it's a fact that we don't have a state income tax. And even corporate taxes are much more favorable in Florida than other states in the U.S. So we saw the benefit of his hard work big time last year, nearly 1,300 people a day. And Stephanie, that does not include, like a lot of your clients from the Dominican Republic that like to buy second homes in Miami. They're not included in that number. And investors, particularly from Latin America, from Mexico City straight down to Buenos Aires, lots of investment. Lots of people from Latin America love to invest in U.S. real estate, particularly here in Miami, particularly in South Florida. They're not counted in 1,300 a day. So the demand curve for Florida is what makes Florida so fascinating, and it's what made me so fascinated in studying these numbers. Now, getting back to supply, we don't have nearly enough.
Can you say it again?
We don't have nearly enough. A lot of the cranes that you see in the sky, those are multifamily rental projects. The condominium developers are waiting for interest rates to lower. Now, President Donald Trump, this is his second week in office. He's made a lot of noise around the world.
A
lot of noise around the world. But he's also been determined, part of his political campaign is, I will lower mortgage rates, I will lower short-term rates, which affects construction loans. I think that is going to happen. Most people believe it will. And once you see those interest rates drop, you'll see a lot of projects get built. There's about 85 condominium developments in what we call pre-construction mode, from Miami straight up to Palm Beach. Those are a lot of buildings. However, there's only about 9 of them that are really under construction.
So about the 85 in pre-construction, 9 are being built.
Are actually under construction. And they're super tall buildings. We're not building 20-story buildings anymore, for the most part. But today you're here at Shoma Bay, which is a 24-story building. This is an exception because it only takes 2 years to build. But Stephanie, once you go over 60 stories, this is a 5-year construction cycle. It takes 9 months to make a baby. It takes every bit of 5 years to build a 60, 70-story building. When you get to 80 stories, when you get to 100 stories, just add more years. It's going to take time. So you haven't seen a lot of construction starts. And even when you do, the lag time between today, February 2025, until these people can move into these beautiful, gorgeous buildings, it could be 5 or 6 years.
And what's going to happen in the time frame?
Well, now you're limited. You're limited with inventory. So I am trying to tell everybody, brace yourselves. You're going to see significant price increases during the second half of 2025, particularly if mortgage rates drop on existing inventory, because people keep coming to not just Florida, but South Florida. When you and I say 1,300 people a day, about 40% of that number is South Florida. Dade County, Miami, Broward County, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach County, Palm Beach. That's 40% of 1,300.
You're coming here.
Well, and you probably noticed it with car traffic on Interstate 95. The highways and byways have gotten a little crowded. They're going to continue to stay crowded because people want to be in this wonderful weather, and they want to be here in this new South Florida. When I do study the demographics of the people that are moving here,
Mm-hmm.
When I first moved here 30 years ago, most of the people that were moving here, probably the average age was about 55. Today, the average age is close to 27.
Yes.
There's the difference in the profile of the people moving to Florida.
I completely different.
Dramatically different. And they're moving here, a lot of them with these companies. A lot of them are young entrepreneurs that want to start their own thing. But for sure, most of them want to start their own families. They want Florida to be their home. So when I was saying earlier, most of my sales before COVID were second home buyers from all four corners of the United States. It's completely flipped.
Now it's more like end users, right?
Oh, people moving here. Like when I meet with developers, as an example, and we're designing the buildings, I'd make a big deal out of parking. I need 2 parking spots per unit.
Oh my God, give me a high five.
Okay, because these aren't second homes where I'm using Uber or I'm renting a car for Hertz or Avis. They're coming with 2 cars,
Thank you, Craig.
a dog and a cat, and a couple of kids. They need at least 2 parking spots. The parking has become almost as important as the swimming pool. It almost has, because the profile of the people who are moving here has changed significantly, and developers are responding. You're going to see some of these buildings that are trying to get out of the ground that have been beautifully architecturally planned are spectacular.
So, so you think we need more new development to kind of to level up all the demand.
Let me help you. You need about 20,000 new, just in Miami and Fort Lauderdale, just those 2 places. You need 20,000 new condominiums constructed every 10 years. Right now, there's only 4,000 that are being built.
Okay, that's
this
something very
entire
important.
decade.
So you need 20,000.
Just to meet population demand. Forget second homes and the investors. Forget those for the moment. And I love those people. Let's put them on the shelf.
Wow.
Just to meet the population increases in South Florida, you need to build 20,000 condos every 10 years. In this decade, we got 4,100 under construction, and this is 2025. We just started the second half of this decade. We're way short.
So we are short in inventory. So those of you that you're still thinking, wow, I see a lot going on, but in reality, there's not.
They're what we call multifamily. Those are rental projects that are also we need.
And can you tell the difference? Because a lot of people don't see, okay, there's a building right here, but I don't know if that's going to be for sale or...
You can usually tell by the height of the building. Multifamilies are really never more than 15 or 20 stories. It's the condos that go to 50, 60, 70, 80 stories, iconic architecture that will indeed change the skyline of Miami. We will become the envy of the world in about 5 years. The skyline of Miami will be talked about everywhere. Today, it's kind of like Dubai. People love to talk about Dubai. And I've been to Dubai, and it is, in fact, spectacular. Miami, Dubai, if you're listening, Miami's right on your heels. Because we're about to become the architectural wonder of the world when these beautiful brand new condos get built. But what you're seeing when you're driving around Miami with all those construction cranes, they're mostly rental buildings, and they're all getting filled up.
And let me just tell them, like, the reference is rental buildings are those buildings where people rent directly from the developer.
Yes.
So they're not selling the units, and that's why you see a lot of those buildings, but they don't go for sale.
They don't go for sale. And I can tell you, most Americans, they want to be homeowners.
Yes.
It's kind of our culture to own a piece of the rock. What's the rock? It's a little piece of the U.S. real estate. We were raised that way, to own something. We rent temporarily, but our long-term vision is to buy. And what I'm seeing, what I try to share with everybody, is don't hesitate when you find a condo or a house here in South Florida that you like. Don't blame it on mortgage rates. Because when you see the amount of people that are moving here, and the amount of inventory that's actually for sale that you can move into this year or 2026, it's not going to last. There's no way it can. I'm not trying to be a real estate salesman right now. I'm trying to be more of a real estate economist. When you look at the math, when you look at the data, there's not enough inventory to accommodate all these people that are moving here.
So, and that's my second question now. And I know you mentioned something that prices in condominiums will go up.
There's no choice.
So, because there's some analysts that are predicting that prices will go down in 2025. And I just wanted to, if you can give me 3 reasons why you think that's not going to happen.
Well, they're right with the older inventory. Condos that are 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old. We had an accident here 3.5 years ago in Surfside, a building called Champlain Towers. Buildings never collapse, Stephanie. Think about it. Think about your life. Think about all the places you've been to in the world. When do you hear about a building collapsing? It doesn't collapse on its own. It usually gets demolished by a developer who wants to replace it with something else. It was an unusual accident, but the state of Florida reacted. In fact, in my opinion, they overreacted. And they put some very tough rules now on all condos in the state of Florida. The 30, 40, 50-year-old condos are now going through structural examinations. They have to repair roofs, swimming pools, anything that could look like a structural issue must be repaired, and condominium associations can no longer waive reserves for replacements. What does that mean? Condominium associations has to have a lot of cash on hand to fix anything that may go wrong in that building. Well, the result, most of these older condos have been, the expression, they kick the can down the road. They've been waiting I'll deal with it later. Well, later's today. And they don't have the cash. So now they've been issuing these two ugly words, special assessments on these older buildings. And that has affected the value of those buildings. They have gone down a little bit, honestly. Now let's flip the coin. The younger buildings, there's nothing structurally wrong with them. They might need an interior decorator. They don't need a structural engineer. So there you're seeing the prices going the other way. And most people that are coming to Florida, they ask their realtor, bring me to a new building. And some of them are aware of these new Florida laws pertaining to these older condos, but that's not the main reason. The newer buildings have more modern amenities. When you walk into the actual apartment, the ceilings are higher, the kitchens and baths are more beautifully appointed. They want the new stuff for all of those reasons. They will buy an older building if it's in a spectacular location, but then they have to make sure that the building is
and that they know exactly the regulations now in Florida. That's the first.
Exactly. And there are some older buildings that are fine, that are financially solvent, they're structurally sound, but there's not many of them. So consequently, most people that are moving here prefer the new. There's the problem. Normally I'll give you one little quick number. Normally we have about 20,000 condos for sale in Dade County, Broward County, Palm Beach County, what we call South Florida, normally. Well, when you age them, if you discount the condos that are 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, there's less than 3,000.
Less than 3,000?
And we absorb 20,000 a year. As I just told you, we don't have enough supply. So people that think there's all these inventory being built, no. If you can sit with someone like me that actually knows the data, no. We have very tight supply and huge demand of people who are moving here permanently, like me. I live here.
Yes.
This is where
we live here.
Yeah, I live here. When my grandkids come down and visit me from New York, they get to stay at Pop's condo, and Pop's been living in his condo for 25 years. I live here.
Yes. I want to do a pause. Quiero hacer una pausa en este momento para ti que estás viendo este video. Si lo que Craig está diciendo te ha tocado en el sentido que tú no sabías esta información, no la manejabas, y comparte este enlace, este podcast con otra persona que tú crees que le puede ser de interés. Y bueno, y por supuesto, si puedes suscribirte, será de mucho, de mucha virtud para nosotros, porque realmente queremos que esta información se siga expandiendo. Thank you. Just letting me know that they have to subscribe, and it's very important. And they're connecting with you, right? It's just a lot of information. No, and then you answered some of the questions that I had about the regulations in now on the structural side of the buildings. You touched that already. But do you think Miami will continue to be on the top cities to invest in the coming years?
Well, yeah. Remember, Miami, I've been here for 30 years, and for 30 years, Miami has always been regarded as the gateway into the United States from Latin America. Latin America, I would say, love Miami. I've traveled to every city in Latin America frequently, and I love how they refer to Miami as Plan B. I don't love it. That's how they refer to it. If their life should go sideways for usually political reasons, in South America, Miami is a wonderful place to call Plan B. That's one reason. It's not necessarily the first reason, but it's one reason. I think the main reason is everyone from Latin America loves the melting pot nature of Miami. It's part American, it's part Latin American. And I'm one of those Americans, by the way, that loves the melting pot of Miami. Some Americans that are not so...
Like the Latino
I love it.
Culture.
Listen, I grew up in New Jersey, and that's a melting pot because New York City, close to New York City, it's more of a European and Asian kind of melting pot. This is a South American melting pot, and I just kind of love the whole vibe of it. Because South Americans love the weather, they love the vibe of Miami, they always have, and that's only getting stronger, particularly now that these American companies are moving here.
Oh, yes.
The American companies have made Miami more sophisticated. A lot of these young entrepreneurs, they are, they're what do you call them? Millennials. Both of my children are millennials. They're computer and technology savvy people. They are. It's interesting to me how that generation are more entrepreneurial minded than my generation. I'm a baby boomer. graduated college, you went to work for a company, and that's what you did, and they paid you well, and they gave you health insurance, and they gave you a little pension, and you lived a happy life. Not the millennials. Most of them want to own their own thing.
Yes.
They want to do their own thing, and so many of them are coming to Miami.
Yes.
So do I see Miami, the population gains and all these people coming here continuing? Stephanie, it's in momentum. And if you understand the physics of momentum, the hardest part of momentum is creating momentum. But once momentum happens, that's a force unto itself. No, I absolutely believe Miami is in its golden era. And I think it's going to last easily 15 to 20 years. As I said, my twin sister is 68 years old. So I will probably, about 10 years, probably stop, I guess, and just play golf every day for the rest of my life. But the population gain, the sophistication from an art perspective, from a cuisine perspective, from a business perspective, from an entrepreneurial perspective, from a technology perspective, and that's going to continue way past, Craig Studnicky and a lot of other. As the baby boomers continue to retire, all of us are going to be replaced with these incredibly young, bright people that are calling Miami their home, and they're going to move Miami to another level of another level. And I get fascinated watching it because I see it evolving every year.
So, and what do you think are the mistakes that investors nowadays are still doing these days? Now that everything is so public, and people are, from your opinion, are they still making big mistakes?
Sometimes. There's something kind of stubborn about real estate. And I've been doing this for 46 years now. The fundamentals of real estate are the fundamentals of real estate, like the 3 L's: location, location matters. Number 2 is the track record of certain asset classes. When you look at the appreciation, most people, when they buy real estate, particularly from an investment perspective, Stephanie, they brag about the capital gain. I bought my house for this and I sold it for that. I bought the condo for this and I sold it for that. I bought an office building for this and I sold it for that. The capital gain. If you take the time to study the track record of an investment property you're being offered for sale, you won't make many mistakes. The mistakes I see is when an investor does not look at the track record of a certain asset class. And that's where the disappointment comes in. I'm a broker that absolutely studies the track record because I put my clients in expensive real estate. But, you give expensive real estate a little time, and it becomes the best investment you've ever made. My hardest part, as a broker, I have a hard time getting people to cross that finish line because they once again, the real estate I put people in are all in good locations and they're expensive. But in 3 or 4 years, they're not so expensive anymore. It's the same old story. When you have more demand than you have supply, which is the Miami story, just sprinkle it with a little bit of time, and you'll do extremely well. But please study the track records of the asset class you're being presented. I have people sometimes ask me about warehouses. Absolute gold investment strategy. Not sexy warehouses, but from an investment perspective, oh my God, they perform beautifully. Yeah, study the track record. Study the track record.
You got it. Study the track record. Estudiar lo que va a comprar para que sepa dónde va a entrar. Y eso es muy importante. Thank you for that tip. So, what would you say, just to be, wrapping up, and I wish we had more time with you.
I know, I wish I did you too. I adore you. You're such a pro. But more than that, you're so enthusiastic, and enthusiasm is contagious. And it's nice. And I learned a long time ago, that comes from a Latin word, enthos, which means spirit within, and you've got it. It's very nice. No, it's very attractive, and I could spend all day with you, Stephanie.
Likewise. So, what would you say to those investors or people that are still thinking, is it the right time to buy? Should I wait for interest rate to go down? Should I wait? Whatever. They just X amount of reasons why not to do it now. What would you say to those people?
Well, usually it's interest rate driven. People will sometimes hesitate when they think mortgage rates are a little bit too high. And my advice to all those folks is date the rate, marry the house.
Oh, can you read that again?
Date the rate. In other words, you can always break up with the rate. You can always refinance your mortgage when mortgage rates come down. But that condo that you want with that beautiful view, or the house that you want with that gorgeous swimming pool in the backyard, it's not going to be available in 6 months, maybe even 3 months. There's too many people moving here. So don't hesitate for that. That's an excuse. That's not a reason. The reason you're not buying is you're nervous. I got it. When you're with the right broker who can walk you through why this particular neighborhood is so solid gold and why this house or this condo is a great opportunity, they'll get you past your reason or your excuse. Sometimes there's a legitimate reason. Some people just aren't ready, willing, or able. They don't have the financial ability to buy something. That I understand. Don't use the interest rate as an excuse, and that's usually the excuse. We have a new president. Donald Trump is in the White House. I think he's going to renew a lot of enthusiasm, not just for real estate, but Florida, because remember, he lives in Palm Beach most of the time.
And for those who think Miami is sinking, oh my God, I'm not buying in Miami.
Oh God, go. Oh God, dear Lord. Oh my God. Listen. These buildings are perhaps over-engineered. I'll give you a little quick story.
Short story.
1992, Hurricane Andrew came through Miami. It was a hurricane Category 5. The worst hurricane Miami has ever had, and it was 30 years ago. State of Florida changed the building codes in the state of Florida to accommodate Category 5 storms. We have the second toughest building codes in the United States. Number one is California because they built the earthquake standards. We build the Category 5 standards. These buildings are arguably over-engineered. These buildings are not sinking, they're settling. It's a big difference. Big.
And I know you live in Stony Isles.
Yeah, I live in a 40-story building that was built 23 years ago, and it has settled. My balcony cracked a little bit. You know what we did? We fixed it.
I just love your answers. Craig, it's been an honor to have you in our podcast. You just gave us so much information, and I know that our audience is going to be excited to keep listening to this. And I also want to let them know Craig is the founder, creator of the Miami Report. And this is great information, señores. Información súper valiosa. Lo pueden buscar en su canal de YouTube, escuchar el reporte completo. Toda esta data que hemos hablado hoy con Craig viene directamente del reporte que él hace cada trimestre, donde él y su equipo buscan toda la información de lo que está en el mercado, de lo que se va a vender, de las tendencias del mercado. Creo que no hay una persona más indicada para poder hablar como autoridad de este tema. Así que, again, thank you so much.
Right, and it's on YouTube. I
Yes.
guess you said that. Okay.
Yeah, you got that.
I got that part.
Así que nos vemos hasta la próxima. Comparte este enlace, suscríbete al canal de YouTube y nos vemos hasta el próximo podcast. Bendiciones.